everyone. Carrie Millspaw here with my Forever Young interview series. And today in my hot seat, I have an absolutely amazing expert from Washington, Jonathan Bailor. He is a New York Times and USA Today bestselling author, nutrition and exercise expert, and a former personal trainer who specializes in using high quality food and exercise to simplify wellness. So I'm really happy he's into Simplify. So I hope this is a level everyone can appreciate and take home and use every day. So thank you, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. I feel very Blair Witch Project-y, given the lighting I have in my office right now. So hopefully I don't scare anybody.
It's like a scary movie. That's kind of cool. You should change your voice and make it go with the whole mood too, like some evil voice or something.
I've noticed my voice is actually lowest in the morning, and then it gets progressively higher at night. So we're recording this at 6 p.m. You're lucky we aren't recording it at 9 p.m. Or I'd be like, hey, everybody, this is Jonathan Bailor.
Oh, so you drink helium for breakfast, I take it.
Exactly. It has no calories in it, so I figure it's a healthy snack.
Awesome, awesome. I love it. It's edutainment time, so a little education and entertainment works for me. So we've got the deeper voice of Jonathan Bailor today, which is awesome. So Jonathan, why did you get into the health industry? Everyone's got a story. What led you down this path?
My story started really, really early in my life. I was raised in a very academic household. Both of my parents are college professors, and I have a much, much older brother. So my brother's 10 years older than I am. And my brother is very athletic. And I was a very geeky, and still am a very geeky person, and was a naturally slim, like slender, geeky person as a child. And I wanted to be more like my big athletic brother. And I was like really into Superman, and I wanted to be like big and athletic like my brother, but that just wasn't in the genetic cards for me. So I did what most people do when they want to get introduced to fitness. I read all magazines. I went to gyms. I went to the Arnold Fitness Expo. I'm from Columbus, Ohio, so that takes place there. And I actually paid my way through college by being a personal trainer. And that was a very, very enlightening experience for me, because I personally have never had a weight problem. As I alluded to, I had the opposite of a weight problem. I couldn't gain weight, which hopefully doesn't make your listeners tune out right now, because it was a very important experience to have, because as a trainer, I was consuming 6,000 calories per day in an effort to get bigger, while my clients, who were predominantly females, generally over the age of 35, I would tell, because this is what I was taught, to consume about 1,200 calories per day and to exercise for upwards of 2 hours per day. Eat less, exercise more. Now, I experienced something very few people get to experience, which is you consume 6,000 calories while people pay you to tell them to eat 1,200 calories, and you don't get bigger and they don't get smaller. You both just get sick and sad. Mm-hmm. And that was incredibly enlightening for me, because no one's ever really asked the question, why? How is that possible? How do naturally thin people do that? And what is the difference between a naturally thin person and a non-naturally thin person? It wasn't because I was morally superior or exercised better discipline or worked harder. I just couldn't gain weight. So I wanted to understand what was going on and why my clients weren't so fortunate. And I also, for my own selfish reasons, wanted to be more athletic. And I wanted to just figure out how to manipulate the human body in a productive way. And I saw firsthand that calorie counting, this calorie mythology, wasn't cutting it. So I retired from being a personal trainer. And this is where the geeky academic parents come into play. I didn't want to give up. I was always fascinated by this field of using food and exercise to change who you are and to improve who you are. But I was kind of out of options. I didn't know what to do or where to look next. So I tapped into the academic parents and geeky side, and I said, where else is there information? And in fact, there's what we see in the mainstream is a teeny, 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 teeny tip of the iceberg, because there's this huge thing called academic research, which nobody except academics even have access to. We're talking going to university libraries, accessing journal articles that you can't unless you're at a university library or pay thousands of dollars for a subscription. And then even if you can access them, they're written for other PhDs. So it's not like you can just sit down and peruse them. But I made I guess you could call it mistake of sitting down and perusing these things. And it became a healthy addiction for me that lasted over 13 years and perpetuated books and all kinds of other fun stuff, because immediately upon starting to read these primary research articles by actual experts are not on television, they don't wear spandex, they live their lives in laboratories. And what they had proven in laboratories, again, not observed, but proven, was so in contrast to what I was taught as a trainer. And that blew my mind. It became a moral imperative almost for me, because I said, oh my gosh, like, first of all, I experienced firsthand that obesity is not a moral issue or a character flaw, because I can't tell you how many times to this day I have people come up to me and say, Jonathan, I swear to God, I'm eating 1,200 calories per day. I swear to you, and I'm not losing weight. And to tell that person they're overeating at 1,200 calories per day, or they just need to try harder. Well, we have millions of people in this country that eat whatever they want, don't exercise, and stay slim. Seems like a question, like how that can take place is a question worth answering. So I spent about 13 years working with top researchers at Harvard, Johns Hopkins, UCLA, to dig into the modern research around eating and exercise, not 50-year-old calorie theories. And this took me down paths of neurobiology, so your brain, gastroenterology, or your stomach, your digestive system, and endocrinology, or the study of your hormones, to see that while calories exist, and true, if you eat 10,000 calories of butter per day, you will gain weight. Good thing no one does that, though. They are a teeny, teeny, tiny part of a much more complicated, but it doesn't mean it needs to be complicated for us to live, but a beautiful complexity that's our body. And when we understand that, we can make it do surprising things very simply.
Wow. So did that prompt you to write the book, The Calorie Myth?
It did actually. My first book, this was a labor of love. I'm a weird guy. My formal training is in economics and philosophy, but then I took a job at Microsoft because I like solving tough problems, and I'm an engineer at heart. And the opportunity to work with brilliant technologists and simplify what they do so that other people could take advantage of it was very exciting to me. So I spent 8 years working on Microsoft Word, and then 1 year working on Xbox. And during that same time period, I was doing all this research because it's the thing I like, the thing that makes me happy in life is working with very technical people and reading very technical things and translating them so that other people can make use of them. So I do that, with technology at Microsoft and with biology with these books. And I just did that for fun. That's what I liked. I don't have any friends. I just have a wonderful wife and a giant stack of research papers in my garage. And that turned into a book and a show and a blog called The Smarter Science of Slim, which was independently published. And that really helped a lot of people and really exposed a lot of mythology. And then that inspired HarperCollins and some other more mainstream, bigger players to get on board. And now that's become this thing called the Calorie Myth. And we've got a TV show coming out, a radio show. It's just cool because people, the bottom line, the thing that everyone can get on board with, and it's so intuitive and it's so self-evident and it's so empowering once you understand it, is could you imagine if we used the same phones we used 50 years ago? Like they were the little rotary things where you were like, 4, 3, like that's ridiculous. Or computers 50 years ago, right? They were the size of your house. So clearly there's been a lot of progress when it comes to science in the past 50 years. But why is it that when it comes to eating and exercise, arguably the areas that we need innovation the most in this country, we're still told the same information we were told 50 years ago? Are we to believe that there's been no scientific progress over the past 50 years in these two critical areas of our lives? False. It's completely false. But no one has taken the time to break down the modern science of eating and exercise into a paradigm or a system that is understandable and practical for folks until now. And that's what gets me so excited.
That's awesome. Sounds like breaking news, this just in kind of stuff. I love that. So, okay, give us a sneak peek. Why do people gain weight then if it's not the calories? And I'm on a calorie counter. I never ever coach a client to look at the back of the box. Look at the ingredients, please. Just ignore the rest. But tell us, why would someone gain weight, especially if they're only doing 1,200 and they're 300 pounds or whatever the case may be? Give us some insight.
It's really important to note two things. One, the research community has now firmly established that about 45 to 75% of your body composition is genetically predetermined, which doesn't mean you can't do anything about it. But for example, you would never go up to someone who's 5'3" as an adult and say, you need to try harder to be 6 feet tall.
Mm.
Because there's just I mean, if you eat poorly when you're a child, it can stunt your growth. And of course, there's things you can do about it. Height is very heavily genetically predetermined, but your body composition is as well. There are three basic body types. Ectomorph, this is a taller and lankier body type. Mesomorph, which is right in the middle. Most athletes are mesomorphs, except for basketball players and such. They would be ectomorphs. And then endomorph. An endomorph is going to be a bit stockier of a body type. Now, telling someone who has two endomorph parents that they need to just try harder to be an ectomorph is a bit, and I don't want to lose the audience here on a football analogy, but hopefully most folks are familiar enough with football to know that there are football players that are really fast and skinny. Those are like the people that catch passes. And then there are those football players that are on the line, and they're the big, husky guys, right? What's cool about football is all of those players go through the same physical conditioning and eat the same basic diet. Are we to believe that those big, bulky guys, if they would just try harder, could be like those skinny wide receivers? Of course not. There's a huge genetic component. So first, we need to understand that. We need to embrace that. And that allows us to make our goal being our optimal version of ourself versus being or aiming to be someone else. Right? Just like my face doesn't look like Ryan Gosling's face. No matter how hard I try, my face, the way it looks, is genetically predetermined, right? That doesn't mean I can't do things to look better or worse. It just means I need to work on being the best version of me, not someone else. So that's important thing number one. Now, of the remaining percentage that we can influence, that is determined by two things, or predominantly actually one thing, and that is your hormones and your brain. And the way you can influence your hormones in your brain is through the quality of the food you eat, not the quantity of the food you eat, and the quality of the exercise you get, not the quantity of the exercise you get. Let me unpack that a little bit. Think about your car, right? The amount of gasoline you put on in it does not change how your car runs. It changes how long your car can run for, but your car will not run better or worse depending on whether it has a quarter a tank of gas or 3/4 of a tank of gas, right? But now if you put kerosene, if you put a different quality of fuel into your car, or you put premium gasoline into it, the car itself will change the way it runs. The system itself will change. And that's what happens with us with weight gain, is our system itself. To simplify, we talk about our metabolism, but to take it one level deeper, think about it: your brain, your hormones, and your gut. And your gut and your brain talk to each other through hormones. And as you age, we've all experienced this, there's usually inflection points at 30, 40, 50, and 60. As you age, we've all experienced that if you eat and exercise the same way you did when you were 16, you will not get the same results as you would when you were 16. The reason for that is your system itself has changed. So the goal is, this is a paradigm shift in the modern model, is you need to look at the system itself and heal the system versus starving the system. That is the fundamental distinction. The old model, the calorie model, is a quantity-based model. It says the system itself is fixed and you're just putting too much stuff into it. That is wrong. It is obviously wrong. We know our bodies change over time, right? And by healing the body itself, it will regulate itself. It will take in the proper quantity of nutrition and the proper quantity of calories, and you will maintain a healthy body weight and avoid disease effortlessly. And that might sound too good to be true, but it's actually too obvious to be false when you think about two simple and self-evident facts. One, the most common cause of death up until the most recent 3 generations was a term we don't use anymore called natural causes. That was the single most common cause of death, which means that people didn't die of disease. Dying of natural causes means you just stop. You're laying in bed and your body just says, I'm done. It's not cancer. It's not diabetes. It's not heart disease. It's just, I'm done, right? And it's a very peaceful, amazing way to end your journey on this path we call life. Today, we don't die from natural causes. We die from disease. So the body doesn't want to be diseased. It doesn't want cancer. It doesn't want diabetes. And these things were frankly unheard of prior to us stopping eating food and starting eating edible products, which we can get into later. So while it may seem too good to say that health is just incidental, we didn't have disease prior to the modern era like we have it now, and no one really tried to avoid disease, so it's not too good to be true. Same thing applies with obesity. Our earliest known records of obesity rates come from the military in the early 1900s, and they were sub 3%, meaning less than 3% of the population had a weight issue. No one knew what a calorie was. There were no gyms. There were no DVD work videos. Yet somehow, without trying, 97+% of the population maintained a slim figure without trying. The reason that works is because your body doesn't want to be overweight any more than it wants to have cancer. But when we put things like, for example, cigarette smoke into our lungs, we get lung cancer. And we put things like added sugars into our body, we get diabetes. And it's that kind of a distinction where I'm talking about food quality. I don't care how many calories worth of vegetables you eat. They ain't going to give you cancer, and they aren't going to give you diabetes. We have to start looking at this as a quality problem. And when we start doing that, we start seeing things like telling someone to starve themselves is just like telling someone to stop breathing to avoid lung cancer. It doesn't make any sense.
Great analogy. I love it. Okay, my head's expanding from all this wonderful knowledge. Can you see it? I'm just like obsessively getting closer to the camera, like feed me, feed me. This is awesome stuff. I love it. I get, and I'm not, but once I maintained my weight back to my real weight, I went from a size 14 to a 6, roughly around 7 years ago. And I live at the gym, and I don't have a relationship. I do love outdoors, nature. I'm a nature girl. I'd rather play outside and hike any day, kayak, jump off of something, rappel off rocks, sitting in a sweaty gym. But I do get a lot of the, well, Jim, how do you look the way you do kind of questions. I'm like, it's autopilot. I have a healthy lifestyle. I don't even think when I order, it's autopilot. It was kind of first switch over. And then it became subconscious after a while because you just order better food, buy better food, you create and prepare better food, and so on. So ensure that obviously people like myself and you and a lot of others, you're giving us hope that there is such a thing. It doesn't have to be so complicated. So you're giving lots of hope and inspiration to our audience today. So if you are overweight, is there ever a thinner? Or more of a healthier diet? So I'm more into health than skinny. I don't like the word skinny.
Absolutely. The good news for folks who are watching this interview, and the sadness is this doesn't apply to children today, because a lot of children today are spending their entire life overweight and obese, which is heartbreaking. But most people who are watching this can probably remember a time when they didn't struggle with their weight, when they had, quote unquote, their ideal body composition. For most people, it's the end of high school, early college. And there is absolutely no, the reason your body looked that way at that time is because you had a certain hormonal makeup, a certain digestive makeup, and a certain condition in your brain. Specifically, you probably didn't have the level of inflammation in your brain that you have now, and you had a much different hormonal balance back then than you do now. And for a lot of people, this is easier to grasp when you think in terms of men, just because the hormone testosterone seems to be like, people grasp it very easily. When you think of an 18-year-old man, you think testosterone, right? And they can build muscle and they're virile. And if you think about an 80-year-old man, what is the difference? The difference is simply the testosterone levels. If you take an 80-year-old man and you inject them with a bunch of testosterone, they'll start to look a lot more like an 18-year-old man. So for individuals who are struggling with their weight, there's no need to starve yourself. What you need to do is you need to understand how food and exercise can be leveraged to change your system. So to change the way your brain works, to change the way your hormones work, and to change the way your gut works. And the good news is that this is incredibly simple once you can escape this calorie mythology. That's the hard part because we have been told the wrong information for 40 years and it seems reasonable. Telling someone if you just eat less and exercise more, you'll lose weight seems reasonable and it is reasonable. But it's important to note that it's also reasonable to say you can eliminate weeds in your garden by pouring gasoline over your garden, but that will kill everything, right? So our goal isn't weight loss. Our goal is sustained health and fat loss. Everyone has lost weight. Everyone who's tried has lost weight. It's weight maintenance that's hard.
Excuse
So
me.
the good, no worries.
Keep
So
talking.
the good news, the good news is that it's really, really simple. Don't focus on eating less. Focus on eating more of four food groups. That's it. And like we can make this more complicated if we want to, but I promise you, if you focus on eating double-digit servings of non-starchy vegetables every single day, these are vegetables you could eat raw. You don't have to eat them raw, but you could eat raw. You can't eat potatoes and corn raw. They're a starchy vegetable. So non-starchy vegetable, think green leafy vegetables, mushrooms, peppers, carrots, cucumbers, asparagus, things that you would get as a lovely side at a very nice restaurant where you order sides a la carte. Double digit servings a day. They don't have to be raw. You can saute some kale with some delicious bacon drippings or coconut oil. Like you can make non-starchy vegetables very delicious once you get over your fear of fat, and we'll talk about that later. But non-starchy vegetables first and foremost. Second, nutrient-dense proteins. These are humanely raised animals, such as grass-fed beef or free-range chicken, as well as basically any kind of seafood. We don't eat nearly enough seafood in this country, and it is a nutrient powerhouse. It's packed with all sorts of good protein and omega-3 fats, which heal your brain. It's therapeutic. It's beautiful. So I want you to eat a big serving of a nutrient-dense protein with every single meal at least 3 times a day. So you've got a half of a plate full of non-starchy vegetables, about a third or the other 2/3 of your plate full of a nutrient-dense protein. And then for snacks, and if you want something sweet at the end, you're going to enjoy whole food fats. These are whole foods, which get most of their calories from fat, such as an egg or nuts or seeds. Macadamia, chia, flax, avocado, olives, and cocoa. And you can make all sorts of fun stuff. It's not about giving up cakes and pies and cookies because you can make them. You just use coconut flour and almond flour and safe sweeteners such as a stevia or a xylitol. And then the last food group is what I call low fructose fruits. These are fruits that provide you the most of what you need, essential vitamins and minerals, etc., and the least of what you don't, sugar, specifically fructose. And those are berries, strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, and blueberries, and citrus fruits, or oranges, lemons, limes, and grapefruits. So literally, I promise, any single person who's listening to this right now, here you go. Here's the 4 things you do. If you do these 4 things and you worry about nothing else, you will transform your life. And there are thousands of pages of scientific research to prove this. Every single day, eat double-digit servings of non-starchy vegetables. Get at least 7 hours of undisturbed sleep. Eat nutrient-dense protein in at least 30-gram servings, meaning like a yogurt that gives you 8 grams of protein is not enough. Like you got to be getting it from meat or fish because that's the only way to get this level of protein. At least 3 times a day, and drink a lot of water, and eat so much of those foods that you're too full for starches and sweets. Do that for 21 days, and it's impossible for you to not radically transform your body because that's just how the body works.
So this is a one size fits all kind of diet, you could say, or lifestyle choice, somewhat.
It's Yeah, I mean, I even in the book, I mean, we don't really have a diet. It's more we establish a framework based on this modern science that just says what foods provide us the most of what we need to heal our body. So vitamins, minerals, essential fats, and essential amino acids or healthy proteins, and which foods provide us with the least toxins and sugars and things that we don't need for life and that have been proven to cause bad health and disease. And those foods are, in order, non-starchy vegetables, nutrient-dense protein, whole food fats, and low fructose fruits. And I just want you to eat them in that order. I want you to eat so many of them that you're too full for starches and sweets or things like processed fats and toxic dairy products. And I mean, how you apply that is going to be custom based on you. Like if you're an athlete, you might eat a little bit more starch, you might eat a little bit more starchy vegetables, but by and large, think about it this way. I wear contact glasses. And to me, and you said, Jonathan, my vision is blurry. Can you help me? And I took this off my and I put them on your face. Chances are that wouldn't make you see any better. It might even make you see worse. There is a pair of glasses that works for you. The reason your glasses work are the same reason my glasses work, because every human eye works basically the same way. Now, we each need a unique prescription, but the underlying law, principles, and science do not vary person to person. Every person who eats spike their unhealthy hormone levels higher than if they were to eat a Snickers bar. That's just the way your body works. So it's a template that then we can customize for our needs and goals.
Very nice. That's how I science too. Start here, and then we're going to tweak and test, tweak some more. No different than a business plan or something else. Okay, very cool. I like that because we're definitely on the same page. I'm all about it. It's all about health. I also think that people don't necessarily need to deprive of what they love. They can upgrade to a better quality of the things they love, which again is encouraging to an audience. I love this. This is my favorite. I'm never going to make a birthday cake again. It's all, and it doesn't have to be that way. So thank you for sharing the cocoa and the better sweetness and giving us hope that we can still have a lifestyle, just better added quality.
Yeah, and just to echo that, really, folks need another data point to understand that what you're saying must be true. Again, prior to the obesity epidemic, birthday cake, right? Our great grandmothers ate pie. Granted, the pie they made it wasn't made with Crisco. It wasn't made with hydrogenated vegetable oils. It was made compositionally different than the way a pie or a snack cake that we would buy packaged would be today. We absolutely can enjoy these things, but it does take a complete rethinking of nutrition.
Absolutely. I was blessed with a baby that had a garden in the backyard, and I thought it was just our own bread, store-bought bread, like the neighbors, picking raspberries off the bushes, making jams and jellies. I mean, we really had a great start. So back then I thought it was just horrible, but same as the rest of the neighborhood. But and yeah, that's the good times. That's the mindset.
And Carrie, one thing that I think will be helpful for the listeners as well is one thing that is really important to note, and that is there's a difference between the one who has never had their brain, gut, and hormones broken by these edible products can eat, and how someone would need to eat to heal them. And then healed, you might be able to do something else. But think about a broken metabolism, a bit like any other break in your body. If you break your ankle, you can't, you have to do something different. You have to rest it. You have to ice it. You have to give it a chance to heal itself. You don't have to ever, but there is going to be a time period in which you're going to need a concentrated effort to heal your body. And then once it's healed, and once you can walk on your ankle again, then yes, you will be able to live a more sustainable or a more enjoyable lifestyle. But I do want to encourage folks, because they say, well, what Asian countries where they eat a lot of starch and rice? How do you explain that? Well, first of all, they actually don't eat more we eat here. We eat dramatically more starch than Asian countries, and Asian countries have hundreds of millions of people that are struggling with diabetes and overweight. So we really compare in the first place. But if you take someone who is healthy and non-diabetic and you feed, that's totally different than taking someone who has 100 pounds of excess fat on their body and is diabetic and feeding them potatoes, right? If you have emphysema, can't smoke at all, ever, because your lungs are broken. And if you do, you could die. So your lungs, we would tell you to do different than once your lungs are healed. Does that make sense?
Sure does. So in other words, you're going to have a more drastic diet change or shift to get to that playing field. And then it's maintenance after that, basically.
Yeah,
right?
Think about it like nutritional therapy. You need some time to let your body heal, and you don't have to be perfect. It's just think about the dose as being determinant of how quickly you'll heal, right? I mean, if you're trying to train for a marathon and you're gonna run every 4 days, if it's convenient for you, it's going to take you longer to be able to run 26 miles than if you said, you know what, I'm going to commit myself to this marathon for the next 3 months. And then like once you get to that level of aerobics, you can just kind of keep on running. But think of your metabolism.
Makes sense. Very good. So since you've had, area expertise, obviously, exercise and levels of activity, you were a personal trainer before. Have to live at the gym? Should we pick a certain activity that works best, by day? How strategic should we do that? I believe in, obviously we should be, but how active? I mean, what's your suggestions around that?
I love that you use the word active because I want to differentiate being active from exercise. Active, or what I call being a person, is walking, standing, taking the stairs. Like this isn't exercise. I don't mean to like burst anyone's bubble, but like we don't credit for walking. That's why we have legs. So like you should do a lot of that. You need to walk when you're 80. You need to walk up until you're 80. You don't use it, you lose it, right? So we get that. So we should always be active. 10,000 steps per day is brilliant. I work up that's all be active, but you don't need a gym membership, and you don't really call it. Never called that exercise up until about 20 years ago. It was just what people did, as you possibly can. Now, sadly, just like with eating, basically everything we've been told about because what we've been told about exercise is that we should do this very low, a high impact, long duration cardiovascular activity like jogging or aerobics class, things like that. These activities have been proven to have a bad effect on our hormones, meaning they raise levels of bad hormones and suppress the levels of good hormones. And they make us really, really for the exact foods that cause us to become metabolically damaged. You want to build up an app sugar and starch really quick? Go for a jog. There's no better way to make yourself sugar and starch than to go for a. So what I want you to add is two forms of exercise. One is completely no impact, what I call restorative exercise. So these are things like yoga, chi, Pilates, stress reducing activities, whereas jogs activity. So I want you to do that. I want you to do a little of intensity, no impact, very safe exercise, such as on an upright stationary bike where you're not pedaling fast, you're pedaling against a lot of resistance. And the reason for this is the faster you move your body, the more likely you are to hurt your body. So instead of just like pedaling frantic, I want you to crank the resistance up and pedal like you're pedaling up a hill. Mm-hmm. And you would do that for 30 to 60 seconds because you're lazy, but because you can't do it any more than that. You'd rest for a minute or two, 4 or 5 times, and in 10 minutes you'd get a better workout than you would in any amount of or things like that. And also, I want you to start doing very heavy, very safe, and very slow resistance, big muscle groups. Your legs, your back, not just your arm, not the little pink dumbbells. None of that. It's sad, but the way our culture works is it's the way men have been told to exercise, but it's not men have been told to exercise, and that is absurd. And I can go off on tangents on how the calorie counting model is repressing women, and it's about shrinking, and who wants people to shrink? Like, we need to grow and be good. So you need to do a little bit of very slow, very safe resistance training. Combine this form of resistance training with this type of training, with this type of restorative exercise, with an active lifestyle. What you will do is cause a complete transformation in the hormonal makeup of your body. This has nothing to do with burning calories. It has to do with healing itself, and that's what these exercises do.
I love the body weight part. And you can save some money, guys. You don't have to join a gym. You can do this stuff at home. Yes. Like, sit-ups don't cost anything. Sit-ups and push-ups and things that you could do around the house to make it easy. I'm blessed to live in Las Vegas, which is why I have to drink a lot of water. It's a desert here. You can dry up quickly and choke. But, there's not much winter here, which You're from Ohio. I'll try not to hold it against you. I'm just kidding. I'm actually a U of M fan, so that's where I lived for about 18 years, was Ann Arbor. But I am blessed to be coast now, where we have better weather and can be outdoors more. And there's to do just around your house. Buy a bike. Go for a walk with your kids. Go play on the playground. Nature and activity at the same time, which is even better for your. Thank you for clearing that up. Everyone that owns a gym out there is going, oh man, don't tell them you can't come lift weights all day. There's other things to do, of course, classes and such. So I want to talk a little bit about the reality, and I know it's on your website, and one of them that's me, because I am a mom. So let's talk about children's health, even though the summit's mostly primarily around backwards. Why not start with our kids? Is that you have more than children overweight, obesity. This one's the one that hit me for sure. Obesity, number one health concern among U.S. parents, topping drugs and smoking. Mm-hmm. I think to just focus a little bit on that, especially if you have kids at home and you're thinking, oh, the worst thing ever is find out they snuck something or we've caught them drinking, and here you've got a pantry full of toxic food that's actually hurting your child more. And I just lost at age 41 to stomach cancer, which to me, it just reignited my fire for why I do this. She left behind a teenage son. She left behind a ton of friends. She was a newlywed. She just married 2 months prior. And that stuff doesn't have to happen, and so my passion is a little anger there too, like those that I feel are shorted a little bit on their lifespan here. So give us parents some hope. Give us some insight around taking better care of our children. Is it overwhelmed? Is it possible? I mean, overwhelmed and busy, but it's possible to really steer children in the right direction. Give us some hope.
It is, and it's extremely important. And the reason I know we can do this might be kind of a simple. It's true. There are millions, for example, vegetarians or vegans, and I'm not here to say whether or not I agree or disagree with that lifestyle, but that is a very difficult thing to do. And there are millions of people who do that and bring their kids up that way. And there's also kosher and halal, and there are literally, if you do that math, there are hundreds of people in the world who have lifestyles which cause them to choose they eat. It's not just eat anything. It's eat only this set of foods. And they are able to do it. So it makes me hopeful, because I don't like anyone telling me that like I'm not as good as someone else or I'm not as capable as someone else, because I believe we can all do great things. So if there are hundreds of people around the world who, either for religious reasons or moral reasons, are able to not eat just anything, we can too. It's just a matter of priority. And when it comes to priority, there's no higher priority than the health of our children. When you realize that, for example, smoking, I've never met a mother ever who would give a cigarette to her child or who would intentionally blow smoke in her child's face. Why? Because she knows smoking is addictive and causes damage. Now, we have now proven that things like are addictive and cause permanent damage. But we live in a children's cereal, children's menus are defined by the foods that contain the most addictive and permanently damaging substances. It doesn't make you just angry as heck, right? Could you imagine if we sold cigarettes in schools? It's not like we outlaw cigarettes, but we say, okay, a 7-year-old child who distinction psychologically from advertising and reality, we want to be advertised to children. But not only does our country allow things like that with these edible product-like things, but it's actively encouraged. And we hear this, what I call the myth of moderation, in my book. And that's what we have to be really careful about, because just like smoke in moderation, to say, in moderation is okay. added sweeteners have been correlated as tightly with diabetes. Smoking has been correlated with lung cancer. Like Al Gore said, it's an inconvenient truth. It is. Like, once you start to perceive these as more like pharmaceuticals or more like nicotine or more like tobacco, ways to protect your children from it, there is a more powerful thing, desire to protect her children. So that's why we can talk about tactics and techniques to the face, but you know what? No one tells anyone how to be a parent or how to be a mother or a father, and they figure it out because child matters to them. So once we see that, for example, what our children are being sold, 6% of the calories the average American child is eating are from non-food. They're from these toxic edible products. We can absolutely find ways to make.
I love that. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. The more you educate yourself, you see your child thing you can think about is, oh my gosh, what is that doing to themselves? And, so it's education is really where it starts.
One other thing I want to add just in terms of education, because I'm not sure, and this is kind of dark, and it's important because I think it will give some people something to think about. But I love the tobacco analogy, because in 50 years, we will look back on the way we eat today now like we look back at how it smoked 100 years ago. And we were just like, that's crazy that you smoked around children. Oh my God. But that's what people thought was okay back then, right? So think about how protective we are smoking. Stick for a sec. Smoking obviously horrible physical damage, right? Obviously it causes horrible physical damage. Not so, but that's it. Cause psychological damage. Now ask a female who's in high school, who's carrying an extra 50 pounds of body fat around, the psychological consequences of that. Like, you don't get a second chance to go to prom. That happens once. If you smoke when you're a teenager, that's probably not going to cause emotional baggage that's going to carry on through the rest of your life. You still shouldn't smoke. But when we feed our children and when our children are exposed to these edible products, not only is it killing them physically like smoking, but it's also killing them emotionally. So it's even worse. Right? Ask anyone who struggled with their weight as a child how traumatic of an experience that is. Not getting picked to be on the sports team, being called fat, not being able to get a date. It could go really, really dark about, like, because especially with females, right, and not loved or approved. None of that comes if you smoke. So I'm not saying like have your kids smoke. It's a good of how protective we are around smoking, and think about how much worse.
Absolutely. So there's hope. We'll look back and go, I can't believe we used to eat Lucky Charms. What are we thinking?
There is absolutely one. That's why we have to. That's why I love milk, which I will shameless plug and see it. There it is. Yay. Is the calorie myth. Because until we understand, for example, that despite the fact that the Lucky Charms only 100 calories per serving, despite the fact that no one eats one serving, they eat 4 servings, is irrelevant. Like, it doesn't matter. It's everything else that's coming along with the calories killing your children.
Mm-hmm. I just see poison. That's all I see. The more educated you are, you just see scaldings on certain packages. That's a hands-off item. Cool. Well, luckily for our audience, we do have a more free personal program with information, motivation, support, and more, and we will have that in the link of the body of this. Share a little bit about that and how that helps someone at least start from nothing and kind of.
So there's a huge amount of free. We've got over 1 million words of content. I have a radio show which you can find on iTunes or Stitcher or YouTube. Just type in my name as the cap. But the number one piece of feedback we've gotten is we actually have too much free content. People don't know like what to do first. What to do. You go over to bailorgroup.com. There's a free program. If you sign up for it, we'll send you an email every other day with one thing, like go read this, go watch this video, listen to this audio, and it will just give you those daily, every other day reminders. Start to verse you in this modern science, which is super simple and not about deprivation. It's just a different approach, and it's a much more sustainable approach. And then I would really highly recommend, not because it makes me money, because it doesn't, it makes HarperCollins a lot of money, grabbing a copy of it, just because like you've had 20, 30, 40, 10 years, depending on how old you are, of misinformation beaten into your head. And then you also hear like, oh, this conflicts with this. And it's like, that's because we need this is the new model. Lay it all out end to end and tell an entertaining story. Get all up by science. Like the preface of the book is written by Dr. Joanne Manson, who's of the Brigham's Women's Hospital at the Harvard Medical School. So you can get the Calorie Myth book. It's less than $20 on Amazon, and then the free program as well.
But no, that's great that you're doing a step-by-step kind of guide people. I was so very impressed with all the content you had on your site. Wow, where to start first? So good stuff. Good stuff. So as we conclude today's interview, any final thoughts for our audience today, or anything that you didn't get to share that you want to get out?
Food isn't your enemy, and that is, we've got, like, this makes sense. If you think that eating is a bad thing that you should stop doing, because that's how you keep your calorie count. It's so calories. The only way, and you shouldn't say absolutist, but I'm going to make an absolutist statement. The only way to heal your brain, your hormones, and your gut is to eat an abundance of kinds of food. They're medicine, and it's been proven. So until we can overcome our fear of food, and instead of pursuing this model of deprivate less and starve your way to success, and you're broken by default, try harder, like that's nonsense. 70% of the American population isn't stupid and lazy. We just become stupid and lazy. We've been given bad information. The thing I'd leave you with is, if you ever feel the urge to just eat less, like I'm just going to skip breakfast, that's the choice. Like, identify that thought, pin it down, and say no. And then say, I'm going to eat some non-starchy vegetables, nutrient-dense protein, whole food fats, and low-fructose fruits instead.
Those, of course, I'll have to eat because I know my blood sugar needs to be a certain level, function better, because I'm not a breakfast person, but it's one of those I force myself every day. I know that sounds odd, but I'm busy. I got things I do. I don't have time to eat.
Well,
yes.
and one quick disclaimer, like, I mean, I do want folks to listen to their body. Some folks, I mean, like, if you're, don't ever say, I'm going to skip. Don't ever do that. Like, if you're hungry, eat. That's
It's just putting the right fuel in your body is what it looks like to me. Well, Jonathan, you've been amazing. I have to have that book, one. For two, it's just been a pleasure working with you, and I love how we're on the same page. And the thing that we're making more people aware of the reality, truth, and your analogy with not using the same phone, same car, same planes, huge. You do need to stay one step ahead of the health industry. It is the reader, and it's not the same old school type of mindset. So awesome insight. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of my Forever Young series. You've been a true pleasure to.
Well, thank you, Carrie. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.